Good morning. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help y'all on your fitness journey. And I am going to go ahead and get myself live on Instagram. So give me a quick second to do that. Say hello to my Instagram family. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Think I'm live on both. Happy Tuesday, crew. See if anybody's coming on. Good morning. I see Maria. I think that might even be Tara that I see on here. What is up, guys? Today I want to talk a lot about the application of macros. I'm not looking at just talking about it from a fat loss perspective, but also for those of you guys looking to dial in your fitness, building muscle, even fixing things like your hormonal health, your metabolism, or metabolic health, and really giving you guys an overall picture of honestly the things that people do wrong when they are applying macros and how to make things a little bit better. Good morning, Maria. So if you guys get any value out of this, please feel free to shoot me over a message so that I know that you want more content like this. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to pop them up in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, because I know that I'm going to be covering a ton of stuff today. I could have really made 3 or 4 episodes talking about this, but I figured I'm just going to throw it all into one episode, and I'll probably still have more to talk about. So the first thing that I really want to say is that macros can actually ruin your relationship with food just as much as it can. Sorry, I just got distracted. My mama just came by out of nowhere. So, hi, Mom. My mom just showed up at my house while I'm in the middle of a live. That was pretty flex the 4-pack. I'm not going to do that right now. We're going to talk about macros. Okay, so what I want to start by talking about is that macros and the misapplication of it can really ruin your relationship with food. But for a lot of people, it can actually repair your relationship with food. And if you are somebody who has ever been down the, I want to call it more than the orthorexic, super clean eating, feeling like you can't ever do anything, you can't eat specific foods because they're not allowed. It really allowed me to find that the balance between eating really good, clean foods, but also allowing myself some flexibility and not judging myself or thinking that any specific foods were going to cause me to gain weight. When I dialed in macronutrients the right way, it actually also stopped me from continuing to underfuel myself. I came from a very restrictive diet from a calorie perspective and from a food choice perspective, and macronutrients really helped me to gain control over my nutrition and showed me how to eat to fuel my fitness and the body composition I was looking for, while also allowing me that flexibility. So if you're someone that's not quite sure if macros is right for you, here are a couple of things that I want you to think about if you are trying to go into using it. Is go into it with an open mind and allowing yourself to understand the key concept is that macros is not your diet. Macros is not your diet. It is literally how you are tracking your diet. It's how you are paying attention to the specific things that are going to change your body composition. Just like, if you're tracking your money, that's not necessarily saying that you're good or bad at spending money. Some people spend money on the wrong things. They spend entirely too much money on shit that they probably shouldn't be buying. Whereas other people spend money on the priorities only. It's very similar. It's not changing what you're eating. It's just showing you how to actually pay attention to the right things. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this. So when you guys are going into tracking macros, the first step is knowing that you have to have a prerequisite like nutritional foundation. You can actually achieve this while approaching or applying macros, but it's a lot easier when you're focusing on one thing at a time. If you're somebody who doesn't really understand what a macro is, meaning your sources of protein, carbs, and fats, if you're not somebody that understands what meal balance looks like, if you're not somebody that ever pays attention to food labels and looking at nutrition facts, if you're not somebody that typically prepares food at home and knows how to cook for yourself in a healthy way, these are things that are like the foundation before you get into macro tracking. Because if you're trying to track macros and you're trying to be specific with that, and you have to do all of these other things as well, you're trying to master all of these things, you're literally learning a bunch of skills at the same time. And you can do that. And a lot of people do. You get to that place where you're like, you know what? I am going all in. I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to do all of the things. But for a lot of people, it's really easy just to focus on one thing at a time. So I have like a list of prerequisites for macro tracking. Okay. If you're getting into macro tracking, specifically macro tracking, you should already know a pretty good understanding of what a balanced plate looks like. I've got a serving of protein. I've got a serving of carbs. I've got a serving of vegetables. I've got some fat. I've got some flavor. I call it my Fit Body 5. Okay. That's kind of like your basics of a meal building structure. You, like I mentioned, you already have good habits in terms of you're able to cook for yourself. You don't just rely on convenience food all the time, because literally if you're getting into macro tracking, you're doing more work than you really have to be doing, because these two things are going to give you a return for your effort automatically. Okay. And then the next thing is being aware of like what your nutrition facts are on the foods that you're consuming. So oftentimes people that are eating clean and they avoid a lot of packaged foods don't even look at food labels, and you should be looking at food labels. So everything that you're consuming, you should become an educated consumer. What am I actually eating? How many calories am I getting per serving size? People go down the rabbit holes and focus on the ingredients, and the ingredients don't matter as much as the portion size, the calories, the protein, the carbs, and the fats, the fiber, those types of things. So you need to know how to read nutrition labels. These are all things that as you get into macro tracking will help you. So if you don't have these things as a baseline, before you jump into giving yourself more work, start with these basics first, okay? So the next thing that you have to understand is that before you get into looking at numbers, you need to focus on how we're tracking the numbers. And this is the skill that most people hate about tracking or getting into macro counting. I don't want to weigh my food. I don't want to use a food diary. Well, those are literally the two things that give you control over your health, your metabolic health, your hormone health, your body composition, how fast you're losing or gaining weight. And if you don't want to take the time to learn that skill, you're going to continue to guess why you're not getting results. So it is a new skill. And just like any skill, there's going to be a learning curve. It gets easier. That skill alone will get easier. So I need you to take the time in the beginning to say, okay, I'm going to focus only on getting really comfortable and confident weighing and tracking my food. If you're not doing those two things, it's not going to matter about having macros, because those two things need to be mastered first. And even if you, honestly, even if you ignored everything that I said before and you aren't building balanced meals, you're not reading food labels, you're not looking at food quality, if you just mastered this skill, we can still go back and fix all of those things. So in fact, if I was to take this back again, I would say that would be the number one thing that all of you guys can do right now to help give yourself control over your body. I don't know why I'm not losing weight. Well, do you even know how much you're consuming? I don't know why I'm not building muscle. Well, how much protein are you getting in? It's why the first step in working with me, before I even give somebody calories and macros, especially if they've never done it in the past, is asking them to simply keep a food diary and take a food audit. Let's see what you're actually currently consuming on a daily basis. If you're not willing to do that, then the macros is not going to happen for you. All right. So this is where you have to ask yourself, am I frustrated enough to take the next step and take myself seriously? Or am I going to continue to just be like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to just kind of wing it, and I'm going to eat clean, and I'm going to be focused on the fact that my hormones are the reason why I can't lose weight? It's all bullshit. Okay. So this is where you need to understand that this is the next step for you to take control over your body. Now, let me talk about how to make this simple for you if you've already taken that prerequisite step. You're weighing and tracking your food. I'm gonna choke. You're already weighing and tracking your food, and now you're trying to dial things in. As I mentioned, having those prerequisites is going to make this a lot easier. The first thing you need to know is what your macro buckets look like, okay? Where are your main sources of protein? Where are your main sources of carbs? Where are your main sources of fats? And what foods do you eat that are a combination of all three, okay? So when you realize where your foods fit into these macro buckets, you can now make adjustments to the amounts of them to help you be more successful. And this is where you don't have to specifically follow any diet plan. You just need to have a list and make it easy for yourself. I have a list that I give to my clients, and if you guys want a copy of that list, just let me know. It gives them an understanding of basically where they're getting their main source of things from. A lot of people, especially in like the low carb world, they demonize specific foods because they associate things like chips with carbs. Okay. Chips are not a carb. Chips are a combination food, or cake or pie or cookies. Those are not carbs. Those foods have carbs in them, but they are combination foods. They have carbs and they have fat, and they also have a little bit of protein, because that's how they get the taste, the texture, and all that stuff to be what they would like to call hyper palatable, or like to call hyper palatable. Okay. So you need to know where your foods fit into your macro buckets. If you are somebody who is resistant to macro tracking, or you have found it challenging or unsustainable or unsuccessful, here are a couple of things that you might be doing wrong. And I'm going to start with what makes it feel challenging. You might be eating by numbers. If you are and this is like the biggest mistake people make. They start tracking their macros and they're literally going through their food every single day. And they're like, oh, I'm under by like 8 grams of fat, and I'm over by like 15 grams of carbs, and I've got like 12 grams of protein. So like, what do I have to eat to zero it out? Or they're literally not even looking at the food quality. They're just eating by numbers. They're like, oh, I need to get 20 grams of protein, so I'm just going to have that. That can be great if your goal is to eat by numbers for the rest of your life. But I always remind people that we don't go to a restaurant and order by numbers, right? I'm not going to go to a steakhouse and say, hey, can I get 60 grams of carbs, 40 grams of protein, and 12 grams of fat on my plate? No, I'm going to go and I'm going to look at the menu, and I'm going to want to know, like, what do I feel like having? What sources of protein are available to me on the menu that look satiating to me, that look enjoyable to me? What kind of carb do I want to have with that protein? Is there some kind of fat in it, or is it a fatty meat? Do I want to add some dressing to a salad or some butter to a potato? It allows you to learn how to, like, you need to be looking to eat by foods, and then looking at portion sizes, knowing, okay, I know that about this much protein, or this serving of protein is about 20 grams of protein or 40 grams of protein. And this is where, like, maybe getting, taking a step back, if you haven't ever gotten into macro tracking, a lot of you guys might have heard of like the plate method or the hand method, and a lot of, other coaches out there, well, not a lot, but there is one in particular that I'm thinking of, is like, don't track macros, blah, 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 blah. Well, he literally tracks macros for you. He just gives you a meal plan to follow. And that can be a great starter set, right? That's a great way to start. But like, what if you don't want to eat like a perfectly balanced, like, protein, carb, veggie, fat? Maybe you want to have a slice of pizza. This allows you to see where that fits in, because you're like, this is a combination food. I know it's going to have a little bit of protein, but it's going to have a lot more carbs and fat. So how can I add protein to this meal? So we're not eating by numbers. We're just eating by, like, finding meal balance and watching the overall calories and watching the overall ranges of our macronutrients. We don't want to be super deficient in one, or, overly fed in another. I often tell people that a lot of people that struggle with fat loss, they think that they're under eating. I get this all the time. I've been told I'm not eating enough to lose weight. No, you're undernourished and you're overfed. And that's because you're not paying attention to macronutrients. You're getting too many calories from calorie dense foods and not getting enough protein, not getting enough volume, not getting enough carbohydrates to fuel your body. It's why you feel like shit throughout your day. It's why your workouts suck. So you are technically under eating, but it's not under eating calories. You're undernourished and you're overfed. Okay. So eating by numbers, being underfed in general is another mistake that makes macro tracking challenging. So if you are somebody that can relate to, you go online, you find a calculator, you plug it in, that you want to lose fat, and you get these macros out, and you're like, I'm hungry all the time. This is like, I feel like I can't get my carbs in without going over all my fats, or I can't get my protein in without, your macro prescription is not right for you. Like, you're just trying to follow something that's too aggressive or too restrictive. And then the last one is perfectionism. And this kind of covers both of the top two that I just mentioned, is, always trying to be perfect, feeling like you have to be on spot with your macros. Guys, your body is not like a math equation. We just know that we need nutrients in balance. In fact, your body isn't like actually going to become deficient if you don't hit your protein one day. It's over time, not getting enough protein, you'll become protein deficient. It's not that you're, under eating if you, under eat one day, or you're overeating if you overeat one day. It's over time, that's going to cause changes in your body composition and your health. So we've got to remove this perfectionism. And this is also where a lot of people that quote unquote track their macros aren't getting results, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Is they are so worried about being perfect that they only track their food when they can be perfect. And this kind of segues me into the next part about talking about macros is, they just, you think like, oh, well, I can't weigh this food out. So how am I supposed to accurately track it? So I'm just going to get back on track on Monday. No, that is not the purpose of using this approach. The approach of using this, as I went back to fixing your relationship with food, is realizing that all foods can fit the plan. You have to be calorie aware and macronutrient aware. It doesn't have to be perfect. You might be off by 100 calories. You might be over or under by something, but you have a general idea of what you consume that day. If you are eating out all of the time, then that's going to be a different story. So let's just go ahead and segue now into, if you're going to do this, you want to do it the right way, meaning you want to give this 100% effort. And 100% effort is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent with the things that matter. So going into the perfectionism, 90% of the time, you should be weighing your food at home and eating food that you cooked. If you start to veer away from that, it's obviously going to cause more variations in what you're tracking. If that's the case, then you have to be a little bit more restrictive, for lack of better terms, as to what you're choosing to make sure that it's easier for you to eyeball things. It's where you can also use different strategies to learn how to track. So that might be where you're eyeballing a portion size and using the hand method. Like, okay, a palm size portion of protein is about 3 or 4 ounces. That's about the size of my palm. All right, I got about 4 ounces of chicken. You can eyeball, okay, if a thumb is about, 10 grams of fat, and I see that I have about, 3 of those worth of dressing on my salad, I have an idea about how many tablespoons, I can kind of eyeball things there. But you got to remove the perfectionism. You got to be looking to actually take control of your nutrition, means you want to be weighing and tracking the majority of your own food. I'll be honest, when you guys get into this and you actually do start taking control over your food, you actually feel better and you start to look forward to your food more, especially if you have the right macronutrient split, because you actually are feeling good on the amount of food that you're getting in. You're like, oh, I'm looking forward to my next meal or snack. Okay. So we want to make sure that you are willing to weigh and track your food. That's got to be number one. And that's why before you even get into macros, I said, you got to master that skill. It's an easy skill to master. Anybody that says it takes too much time to weigh their food is just looking for an excuse. I don't care what you say. It takes you an extra 1 second to put your plate on a scale. And if you don't have time to track it right away, you can write it down and track it as soon as you sit down to eat that said food, because you are going to probably go and sit down and scroll through social media. So rather than scrolling through social media while you're eating, go ahead and open your macro tracking app and track what you just weighed. Okay. So I am going to call people out that say that macro tracking is too much work, because it ain't too much work, especially if you have goals. If you want to fix the way your body feels, if you want to lose fat, if you want to build muscle, if you don't know why your hormones are all out of whack, okay? This is the tool that you need. And I'll talk about more about that as we get going. But let me finish off what I'm talking about right now, because as you guys can hear, I'm getting a little bit passionate, okay? So we want to make sure we're weighing and tracking. We want to remove the perfectionism. You cannot skip tracking things, okay? This is another mistake people make. I'm drinking coffee right now. This coffee doesn't have a whole bunch of calories in it. I put a little bit of fat-free whipped cream on top. I put some almond milk. I put some sugar-free skinny syrup, but I still track all of the ingredients that have calories. The skinny syrup does not have calories. The Ready whipped cream has calories. The almond milk has calories. And a lot of you guys are not tracking the oil you're putting in your pan. You're not tracking, the creamer that you're putting in your coffee or the sugar you're putting in your coffee. You're not tracking the random little bite that you had off of your kid's plate when you were throwing his food away. You're not tracking the handful of chips you grabbed while you were making dinner. Those things add up. And if you're not seeing results, that's probably why, because those calories are doing more damage than you realize to your fat loss goals. Okay. You got to track all days. If you're tracking Monday through Friday and you're not tracking Saturday and Sunday, that's like a 70% compliance. And if you aren't eating the exact same thing as you are Monday through Friday, which is why you're not tracking likely, that's also why you're not seeing results, because your calorie intake is going up on the weekends. It's why if you're going to do this, you can't do it with perfectionism. You've got to track those things that you're not secure tracking, or you feel guilty for tracking, because those are the things you need to be more calorie aware about. Because if you're not tracking, those are the things you're probably going to be consuming. Okay. I already mentioned using a food scale. The next thing here is you need to be tracking your daily weights and your feedback. Now, when I talk about feedback, what I'm talking about is, how's your gut? Are you pooping regularly? Are you feeling bloated or heavy? How's your energy levels? Are you feeling good? And are you getting good quality sleep? And when I ask you these questions, are you actually prioritizing sleep first? Because we want to know if there's a difference between a nutrition related deficiency versus like you just have a sleep debt because you're not prioritizing getting enough sleep. Okay. But are you sleeping well? Is your energy throughout the day good? Is your mood good? How's your appetite on a scale of 1 to 10? How hungry are you? If you're in a fat loss phase, you are going to be hungry. That's part of it. So if you're not getting hungry, like there's something going on. Okay. But if you're so hungry that you're like always looking for food, that could be a problem too. So we have to figure out where you're at there. Okay. Hey, cat, get away. All right. So sleep, energy, mood, focus. Like, how's your brain functioning? Okay. Like, are you distracted because you're always thinking about food, always looking for your next meal? That might be a sign that something needs to be addressed. And that's why you're tracking this stuff. You don't have to like write it down, but just being aware of it, because that's going to allow you to make adjustments to things. And then you want to track your weight. Big mistake people make is only looking at their daily weights. They're looking at their daily weight point, and or they're only weighing themselves once a week. Like, those are two big mistakes. And especially if fat loss is your goal, you want to be looking at your daily weights, but taking a weekly average of those, because your weekly average is a better estimation of what your body weight is. Your snapshot day where you weighed in 2 pounds lighter is not your current weight. Your snapshot weight when you weighed in 2 pounds heavier is not your snapshot weight. Those are, or your actual weight. Those are just snapshots. Those are variables. You want to look at your weekly average, because your weight is not just fat and muscle. It's also water. It's also food. It's also stuff in your digestive tract. It's a lot of other things too. So we want to make sure that we're tracking what's going on with your weight the right way. Okay, so you're tracking things. All right, so, and then as I already mentioned, you want to make sure that if you're getting into macro tracking, that the food quality has already been dialed in. This is like part of the prerequisites. You're building the balanced meals, you're eating good quality food. This goes into like not just eating by numbers. And the reason I really push people to focus on food quality first is because unless you're planning on living by tracking your macros for the rest of your life, you're not going to be able to sustain your results, because eating a lot more processed food just to hit your macros is very hard when you're not tracking macros, because the calorie density of those foods is so much higher. So you want to make sure that your food quality is dialed in. I am not a macro coach. I do have macronutrients as a part of my plan. And it is what I'm talking about today, because it is what matters most for what most of you guys are dealing with. But food quality is the base. So like when people come to me, if they don't have food quality addressed first, I am going to be focusing on that. But a lot of people that come to me are already doing the food quality. They've already tried tracking macros and they're not getting anywhere. Or they're following a low carb diet. They've removed everything from their diet and now they're stuck and they don't know why they're not seeing results. So that's where I kind of come in and dial things in. The other thing that we want to look at with that is making sure we're getting enough micronutrients, because your body, macronutrients are the big picture nutrients, right? Macro is large. So these are the main sources of our calories, and micronutrients we need small doses of. And that's why I do recommend a high quality diet, getting in plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables, plenty of animal-based proteins, natural foods, nuts, seeds, oils, those things that are going to pack your body full of micronutrients. I'm not even halfway there yet. Actually, I'm about halfway there. Okay, so what we've covered so far is understanding how macros can be applied to help fix your relationship with food rather than destroying it. Learning how to not be so macro focused and focus on eating good quality food and just dialing in the amounts to get results. Looking at some of the mistakes you guys might be making, how to go all in. But let me go over the why. But why does all of this stuff matter? How does this actually work for my goals? Okay. This is the important part. All right. All of this stuff is to tell you how to get started. Now it's to give you the why, because I am somebody myself. If I understand why I'm doing something, I'm going to be more likely to do it. If I have proof that something works, then I'm going to be more likely to do it. So here's why. Okay. Our body needs calories to survive. Our calories come from our macronutrients. We've got protein, carbs, and fats. Your protein is 4 calories per gram. Your carbs are 4 calories per gram. Your fat is 9 calories per gram. So when it comes to a body composition perspective, I want to lose body fat. I want to get leaner. I need to lose weight. Your calorie control matters most. Okay, this is the one part. Okay, you want to lose fat. You want to build muscle. Calories matter most. If I want to get into a calorie deficit for fat loss, I've got to lower my calorie intake or increase my energy or my calorie output. Okay, it's an energy equation. You can't outsmart that equation. Even if you have lost weight following a low carb diet, it's not because of the carbs. It's because you went ahead and you mastered the calorie equation by cutting out carbohydrates. Okay, so, but with calories only being controlled, it's not enough, because if calories were all that mattered, then you wouldn't be getting the nutrients that you need. Protein is essential. Essential amino acids are necessary for you to maintain and build lean muscle, important for your immune function, your hormone function. Amino acids do so much, and they also give you energy. Okay, that's why some people take BCAAs during their training, and they say, I feel a little bit better when I take those. Carbohydrates provide your body with fiber. They also provide your body with a lot of micronutrients, vitamins and minerals from a lot of your fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And they also provide your body with its primary source of energy for any kind of activity. Okay, so whenever we are moving, our body is going to look for energy to do that. And what it's using the most of the time is glycogen. Even thinking requires glycogen. Okay, so we need carbohydrates for energy. If you are trying to build muscle and you are trying to lean out and you want to feel better in your workouts, you need carbohydrates. You don't need to cut carbohydrates. You need to control calories, which means your carbohydrate intake might have to be altered. But the goal is to find the right balance of carbohydrates for you, the right number for you to still feel good, to still get progress in the gym, and also still see results. Fats are also a requirement. It's a nutrient that we need. We need fatty acids. And those fatty acids are going to be important for your brain function, for hormone health. We need a little bit of fat. A lot of people overshoot how much fat we need because people have demonized carbs. And rather than having a balanced diet, they're just like, well, I'm just going to eat a whole bunch of fat. Okay. And it's disgusting. If I see one more person eating a stick of butter, like, what the fuck? Like, excuse my language, but yo, butter goes good on bread. Okay. You're not going to find me eating a stick of butter. Just saying. Okay. So we have to look at calories. We have to look at all of those things. Okay. That's from a body composition perspective. Let's now talk about metabolic health, your overall health, your hormones. Okay. So many people going down the rabbit hole of like, my thyroid's tanked. I've got Hashimoto's. I've got this metabolic condition. I've got low estrogen. What is your what are your macronutrient intake? What's your macronutrient intake like? Okay. If you are over consuming calories, primarily from fats, that gets stored in your fat cells as triglycerides. Most hormone imbalances, while people think that they come from specifically from your diet, are from unideal body fat percentages. You have either an excess of body fat and it's causing hormone disruptions, or you have an what's the opposite of excess? You don't have enough body fat. You have too low of body fat. and your body is lacking enough fat for hormones. It is a balancing act. You need to have the right body composition in order for you to fix your hormone health, your blood sugar, and all that stuff. It's not your specific diet. It's actually not even like, yes, some foods will spike your blood sugar, but your body is conditioned to release insulin to help bring your blood sugar down. It's the overconsumption of calories that causes all of that stuff to go haywire. So if you want to fix your hormones and all of that stuff, dialing in your macronutrients and looking at what you're freaking eating can be the best thing for you. Getting to a healthy body fat percentage can get that for you. Guarantee you, if you look at the demographic of people that deal with hormone imbalances, and you also looked at their body fat percentages, you would see that they likely do need to be in a better body fat percentage range. Okay. This is where I can go down a rabbit hole of like the whole healthy at every size thing. I was going to make a post about it, but I haven't yet, but I'm going to make one. All right. We need to have an ideal body composition, an ideal body fat percentage to have healthy hormones. Dialing in your macronutrients is the best way to do that. Because if you're looking at a food tracking app and you're doing this the right way with food quality and all those things on board, you are going to be able to fix your diet. However, you have to be willing to fix your diet. You have to be willing to say, I'm not going to play victim and I'm going to play hero. I want to be the hero of my story, not the victim of my circumstances. And that's like the harsh shit that I have to say sometimes, but it's because I'm a coach that sees this on a daily basis. And I love when women come to terms with the fact that like, yo, I'm ready to fix this. All right. The last thing I'm going to say about this whole topic is the biggest mistake that everybody makes that makes macro tracking so miserable, unsustainable, and just they don't want to do it, for lack of better terms. You have no idea how much you should be eating to feel good. You have no idea. You have no idea how much you should be because you are always looking to external factors to determine that. You have an ideal weight in your head and you're going to be on a macro restricted plan until you reach it. Okay? You have always only ever dialed in your macros in fat loss. You have only ever dialed in your macros by playing macro Tetris, macro perfection. You have never learned what it looks like to apply macros with a flexible dieting approach based on what your body is telling you, based on what you actually need, okay? You have tried so long to fight what your intuition is telling you. It's why most people are like, I wish I could just eat intuitively. You can't fucking eat intuitively and change your body composition and change what's going on because you're eating intuitively based on what feels natural to you, based on what you do all the time. And this is the best way to remove all of that and put it into logic. It's like going to a doctor and saying, I have this condition. And this doctor says, okay, this is the 3 medications we're going to give you. And this is the next things that I want you to do to fix it. And you start taking your medication and you start following the plan. And then you go back 6 months later and he's like, great, things look good. Okay. This is you taking control of that without needing medication. But it comes down to you having to say, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to take the next step to do this. So I know that the main topic of today was how to apply it. But as I'm ending, what I really want you guys to hear is that if you want to take control over your body, you got to give this a shot. And not giving it a shot for 30 days, 60 days, even 90 days. You might need to give it a shot for 6 months to a year. You know why? Because you've spent the last 20, 30, 40 years eating without ever paying attention. And it's going to take more than 6 months to get you to intuitively eat a different way. Not all of my clients leave me tracking their calories and macros. In my last month of coaching, I asked them, hey, do you plan on tracking beyond working with me? Be honest, because that's going to change what I do right now. And here is how I shift in my last month of coaching. If a client has successfully gotten to where they want to be, and we've successfully rebuilt their calorie ceiling, which is the fun part. Yay, more food. Okay, because being in a fat loss phase, you're going to be hungry. Is if they're like, I would actually like to see what it looks like to not track my food and see what happens. We start to remove the training wheels. I say, all right, this week I want you to eyeball your portions and just like cross-check yourself, just like put your food on the plate and say, I think that's 3 ounces, and then weigh it, see what it is. Don't do it all the time, but just as you're going throughout the week, try that. And then I might say, all right, I want you to try not tracking your food for a couple of days. Just write it down. And then put it in the food journal and see about how close you are. If a person has truly mastered the food changes, the habit changes, and all that stuff, that shit becomes easy. And then I say, it's a Saturday. Just don't track anything. Just tell me what you had. We went out. I had 2 slices of pizza. Had some ice cream with my kids. The rest of the day was pretty normal, though. I look at their weight on Monday morning. It's exactly the same. Cool. It stays the same all week. That's progress. That's where you have now found balance. You have taken the time while dialing things in to learn how to build a balanced lifestyle. Okay. But you got to do the hard thing first. You got to put the work in to make it easy. Short-term hard, long-term easy. And opposite of that is short-term easy, long-term hard. You keep avoiding this thing, and it's why you're stuck. It's why you can't make any progress. It's why you're frustrated. Okay. So if you guys have questions, I know I'm babbling on now. I just lost my connection with my Instagram family. Now I have to redo it. I don't think I can. Oopsie. Well, I guess I'm going to be back on here with Facebook. I accidentally touched my computer screen and my back button hit. Oopsie. If you guys have any questions about where you should be for your calories or your macros, or anything like that, let me just do this really quick because I just lost my connection. Y'all, I got to do this. I got to stay consistent. I've been doing Instagram Live every single week. I got to give them what they asked for. This is so funny. All right. Technical issues. I got cut off because I accidentally hit my backspace bar. So now I'm on my phone and on my desktop because I was just finishing up this episode. All right. If you guys have any questions about how to effectively dial in your calories and your macros, where you guys should be for that, for your specific goals, whether you are looking to lose body fat, whether you're looking to build muscle, whether you do have hormonal stuff going on, whatever your goals are, if you have questions about where to start, shoot me over a message. I am starting my fat loss fast track next week. If you guys do want to jump in on that, I was going to close registration on the 31st, but I'm going to leave it open until Thursday. Okay. So it's a great way for you guys to get some education on this. I'll take you through 12 weeks of understanding what you guys need. And if you want more information on that, just shoot me a DM. You can find me here on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me by just, obviously sending me an email at cheryl@myfitbodyrx.com. I will put the links in my show notes. But if you guys have any other questions about calories, macros, or your specific goals, please shoot me over a message. And again, I'm sorry that I got kicked off of Instagram, but I did want to come back on here. Do you guys have any questions before I sign off? Any questions? Any more questions? Let me just see if I have any waiting for me here and look at Craig. Good morning, Craig. Good morning, Holly. Good morning, Judy. You guys have any more questions on YouTube, Facebook, or on Instagram? Nutrition questions, training questions. I got to be honest. I like the way I look better on Instagram. I'm looking at my difference. Any questions, guys? Y'all are just macro masters here? Because I definitely wasn't. I failed miserably when I first started. In fact, maybe I'll just end on that. My macro tracking history. I remember when I first started trying. I was like so unbelievably under and over. I was way over on protein because I came from a paleo diet, and way under on carbs, way over on fat. And I felt like I was never going to dial it in. But it only took me 2 weeks. 2 weeks in, and I was good to go. Any other questions, guys? All right. Well, then I'm going to sign off. Again, sorry that I lost you guys on Instagram for a quick second. People that are listening to this on my recording are probably like, what the hell's going on? Just deal with me. I'm a hot mess express, and that's okay. We all are some days. All right. Well, if you guys need anything, you know where to find me. Like I said, shoot me a message. You can shoot me a DM. You can shoot me an email, Cheryl@myfitbodyrx.com, or you can also follow the link in the show notes. And I'll talk to you guys all soon. See if I can get off here.